Strange Encounters, 4 Stories of Dangerous Neighbors, Story 1, The Woman on the Porch. I was going through old notebooks with my girlfriend when I found it, a short, messy diary entry in the kind of handwriting you only have when you're 12, and still learning how much pressure a pen can take. The words were childish, but the moment I read them, my stomach dropped. I remembered, not as a story I'd heard, not as something I'd exaggerated over time, but as a cold, complete memory that had just been waiting for the right key to unlock it. Back then, I lived in what I thought was the safest neighborhood in the world. It was a gated subdivision, the kind with white painted fences, identical mailboxes, and speed bumps every few streets. The kind of place where people left bikes on lawns and kids played soccer in the cul-de-sac until it got too dark to see the ball. The gates at the entrance were more decorative than anything. Big iron things that slid open for any car that punched in the code. But to my 12-year-old brain, they were a wall between us and the whole rest of the dangerous world. My parents trusted the neighborhood enough to leave me alone inside it. I wasn't allowed to go past the gates, but within them, I could ride my bike, walk to the little playground, visit the neighbors I actually knew. They'd say things like, "If you stay inside the gates, you're fine," and I believed them literally. Safe or dangerous was a line you could draw on a map. That afternoon, after school, the sky had that dull, flat light that means the sun's going down but hasn't quite committed. The air smelled like sprinkler water, asphalt still holding the day's heat, and something sweet from the flowering bushes people planted to make the place look nicer than it really was. I hopped on my bike like I always did and started looping around the block, just burning off the leftover energy from sitting at a desk all day. It was quiet. A couple of cars in driveways, distant sound of a lawnmower, someone's TV muffled through a window. That's when I saw her. Middle-aged, maybe. At 12, everyone over 30 looks the same kind of adult. But now, remembering, I'd put her in her late 30s or early 40s. She was sitting on the front steps of a house a few streets over from mine, the one with the faded blue shutters and the perpetually overgrown shrubs. The front door behind her was wide open. That stuck out even before anything else in our neighborhood. People opened the inner door, but kept the screen or glass door shut. Or they left the door wide open only when they were having a barbecue or guests over and the house was full. This was different. The door was just open, a dark, rectangular mouth empty behind her. She was crying. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But as I rolled past more slowly, I saw her shoulders shaking. Her hands were in her lap, fingers twisted together, like they were trying to strangle each other. I should have kept going. Instead, I stopped. The brakes squeaked a little. She looked up, and that first eye contact felt like a hook being set. Her eyes were red, not the "I just started crying" kind of red, the "I've been crying for hours and didn't sleep last night" kind. Her face was puffy. There were little wet spots on her shirt. "Hey," I said. My voice cracked on the word. Are you okay?" It felt like the right thing to ask. It felt like something a good person would ask. She sniffed, wiped at her face in a way that didn't actually stop any of the tears. "Oh, hi, sweetheart." Her voice was hoarse, like each word had to find its way through something raw. I'm just having some trouble with my husband. It's nothing. I'll be fine." She said nothing in the way adults say don't worry about it when they have absolutely no intention of letting you not worry. "Okay?" I said, awkwardly. My bike was between my legs, one foot on the ground, one on the pedal, a position I could have very easily turned into a getaway. I hope things get better." I started to push off. "Wait," she said, and the word had a sharpness to it that made me stop without even thinking. Then she softened her voice instantly. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" I told her. "That's a beautiful name," she said. I'm just feeling a little alone right now. Would you come in for a minute? Just to sit with me? I just need someone to talk to." Just for a moment. All the school assembly talks, the classroom videos about stranger danger, the pamphlets they'd handed out about never go inside a stranger's house, flickered through my head like a slideshow. My mouth went dry. My parents, I started. I couldn't seem to finish the sentence. She leaned forward, earnest, eyes huge. "Please, just a minute. I'm not a bad person. I just need company." Her voice wobbled, broke. Please, please, just for a moment my brain split into two tracks. Track 1, you don't know her. You're not supposed to go inside. Mom would be mad. Something about this is wrong. Track 2, she's crying. She's clearly sad. Good people help sad people. If you leave, you're being mean. She might tell your parents you were rude. She might tell people in the neighborhood you're a bad kid. At 12, guilt is a heavier weight than fear. I can't go inside, I said finally, trying to sound firm and adult. I'm not allowed to go into people's houses if my parents aren't home. She sighed, a long shaky exhale like air leaving a balloon. Of course. You're a good kid. You listen to your parents. She wiped her face again. Then would you just sit out here, on the porch, with me, just until I feel a little better? You can stay outside. I won't make you come in. That felt like a compromise, a safe one, my brain insisted, because I'd still be outside. Daylight. Neighbors all around. Gates. Okay, I said, for a little bit. I propped my bike against the railing and sat on the top step of her porch, careful to stay closer to the edge than the open doorway. My heart was beating faster than it should have been for a kid just sitting down. Thank you, she murmured. You're such a kind young man. She put a hand briefly on my shoulder. Her fingers were cold and damp. Just wait here. I'm going to get something to show you, all right? Don't go, okay? She got up and walked inside, disappearing into the dark rectangle of the house. The door stayed open. I sat there alone on the porch, staring at that doorway. The cool shadow inside looked almost solid against the brightness of the evening. I could hear the faint hum of a TV from a neighbor's house, a distant car passing by, the muted slap of its tires on the speed bump down the street, the chirping of some bird I couldn't see. From inside her house, nothing, no footsteps, no movement, just silence. I started counting in my head. When I got to 60, then 120, then 180, the back of my neck prickled. She reappeared suddenly, making me jump. In her hands were two framed photos. One showed a boy older than me, probably 16 or 17. Dark hair under a high school football helmet, eyes squinting at the sun. The other showed the same boy standing between a man and a woman in front of a beach. All three smiling. The man had his arm around the boy's shoulders. This is my son, she said, sitting down next to me. She put the frames between us like evidence. He plays football. He's actually really good. One of the best on the team. There was pride in her voice, real and fierce. This is his dad. We went to Hawaii for our honeymoon. It was beautiful. Have you ever been to the ocean? I shook my head. She smiled faintly, eyes going unfocused as she looked at nothing. The water was so blue. We stayed in this little hotel with a balcony, and we'd sit out every night and listen to the waves. Her voice drifted. Then it snapped back, sharpened. But now he wants a divorce. He wants to leave, and I'm afraid I'll never see my son again if he does. I'm afraid he'll take him away from me. Her words came faster, like she was trying to outrun something. I didn't know what to say. At 12, the worst fight I'd seen between adults had been my parents arguing about what color to paint the living room. Divorce was a TV word. It didn't live on my street. She shifted closer. Her shoulder brushed mine. I could smell something on her. Cheap perfume and something sour underneath, like sweat and old tears. Suddenly, she leaned against me and started crying again, really crying all the way from her chest. Her tears soaked through my t-shirt where her face pressed into my shoulder. Her hands rested lightly on my arm. It was like being hugged by someone who'd forgotten you were there. I sat frozen, every muscle locked, my eyes staring straight ahead at the end of the street. The sky had shifted a shade darker. In my head, I kept repeating, "It's okay, she's just sad. Just wait a little longer, then you can leave. You don't want to be rude. Don't make her feel worse." After a while, the crying quieted to soft sniffles. She pulled back, wiping her face, leaving a wet patch on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," she said, laughing a little in that unhinged way that isn't actually funny. No one understands. You're very sweet to sit with me. You really are a good boy." She looked at me like I was something she'd been looking for. "You don't know how important it is that you're here with me right now." The way she said that sent a cold little needle prickling under my skin. She started telling more stories, how she'd met her husband. the restaurant he'd taken her to on their first date, the song that had been playing, details too precise to be made up, but delivered in this rushing, breathless way that didn't leave room for me to answer. I nodded when it seemed right. My eyes kept drifting to the open doorway, to the dark hallway beyond it. "Do you want something to drink?" she asked suddenly. "I could get you a soda, or some water, or I could make you something." "I should make you dinner, really, after how kind you've been?" "I'm okay," I said quickly. The idea of her going back into the house again made my chest tighten. The idea of following her in made it worse. "It would be my way of saying thank you," she pressed. "You could come in. We could sit properly. I could cook you something. Do you like spaghetti? Or I could make eggs. I make good eggs. My son loves my eggs. He always says I really can't." I interrupted, my voice coming out a little higher than usual. "My parents are going to make dinner. They're going to be home soon." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You can just tell them you were helping your neighbor. They won't be mad at you for being kind. And if they are, well, that says more about them than about you, doesn't it?" Her tone had an edge now. "It's good for you to spend time with me. You don't know how important it is." There was that sentence again. "You don't know how important it is." Something in me started to panic. A small, squirming instinct that had been whispered under all the guilt finally got a little louder. "Leave. I should go soon," I said. "I have to do homework too." She went still beside me. Her jaw tightened. For a second, the mask slipped and I saw something raw and angry underneath. "Just a little longer," she said. Not a question. "Just stay a little longer. Please." The word please came out through clenched teeth. My mind started doing what anxious minds do, making deals with itself. "I'll stay 5 more minutes, then I'll say I really have to go. She lives close to your house. She might know your parents. She might say you were rude. Just don't make her mad. 5 more minutes." It felt like being on a roller coaster that only went down slowly and you couldn't see the bottom. After a while, she sniffed and straightened up again, mood swinging back to sad. "Do you know how to use a cell phone?" she asked suddenly. "I just got one. I'm not very good with it. Could you help me?" Sure," I said automatically. Helping with technology was a safe, simple task in my head. Push some buttons, then go home. She stood up. "Wait here," she said again. "Don't go." She disappeared into the house. This time I counted more deliberately. 30 seconds. 60. 90. The house stayed silent. The open doorway looked like a throat. Part of me wanted to get on my bike and ride away as fast as I could. I even shifted my weight toward the step. Then the guilt voice spoke up again. "She trusted you. She's sad. She's your neighbor. If you leave, what does that make you? What if she comes to your house and asks why you left?" 2 minutes. 3. When she finally came back, I almost flinched. She was holding a phone, an older Android model with scuffed edges, no case. She handed it to me. Screen dark. "I think it's broken," she said. "Can you turn it on?" I held the phone carefully, like it might shock me. At that age, I'd only ever used an iPhone. The Android felt unfamiliar. Heavier, its one physical button centered on the bottom. I pressed and held it. The screen lit up. A logo appeared. My reflection floated faintly over it. Round face, nervous eyes. "Oh," she breathed. Good. Now, do you know how to check messages? Texts?" "My husband, he sends them, but I can't always see them. The phone hides them from me." Her mouth twitched. "Technology," she added, like it was a conspirator. I found the messages app. One conversation. No name. Just a number. Dozens of texts. "Is that him?" she asked, leaning over my shoulder, close enough that I could feel her breath on my neck. "Is that my husband? Read them to me, please. I need to know what he says." My thumb hovered over the screen. The top message preview said, "Hi." Underneath, "Hey, hello, you there?" "It looks like he's saying hi," I said. "He keeps saying hi. Read them," she insisted. Her voice was sharp again, out loud. "All of them." "There's a lot," I said weakly. "They're kind of the same." "Read them," she said, louder, "please." So I started reading. "Hi. Hey, you there? Hello. Answer me." Her eyes slid closed. As I read, she would nod occasionally, tilting her head like she was listening to music. Only she could hear.
"Does he miss me?"
she asked abruptly, eyes still shut. I don't know. He's just saying hi." She made a noise in her throat. He should have thought about missing me before. Keep going. I scrolled. More of the same. Stretching back days. Same number. Same short variations. Hi. Hey. Call me. Why aren't you answering? Something about it all felt off. Not just the content, but the pattern. The messages were spaced strangely, sometimes minutes apart, sometimes hours, but always in clusters. As I read, my chest got tighter and tighter, like someone was slowly cinching a belt around it. Every time I paused, because my mouth was dry, because my eyes stung from staring at the screen, because I needed to swallow, she would snap, "Keep reading." I obeyed. Then I hit a message that was different. I said. What? Her eyes opened. There was a wildness there now, thin and bright. This one's not like the others. Read it, she said. Read it to me. My throat felt dry as paper. I swallowed. It says, "Stop texting me, crazy woman. Leave me alone like I already told the police. I have a restraining order. If you come near my family, you'll be arrested." The silence after I read that felt heavier than her crying had. She stared at me, then at the phone, then back at me. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something almost like confusion in her face, like she was hearing the words for the first time too. Then she laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, not amused, more like surprise, cut with anger. "He's lying," she said quickly. "He lies. He tells them all lies. They all believe him because he's charming. He's so charming. He's so polite. He's so normal." The words came in a rush. "You see how many times he texted? You see how he can't stop? That's not normal. That's obsessive. He's obsessed with me. He wants me back." I looked back at the phone. The endless string of highs, the timestamps, the restraining order message, a slow, sick realization crawled up my spine, one vertebra at a time. Are these from your phone?" I asked quietly. Did you send these?" Her mouth tightened. Something flashed in her eyes. Anger, embarrassment, something dark and fast. "That's none of your business," she snapped. Then, softer, she forced a smile that bent wrong at the edges. "You're just a kid. You don't understand how relationships work. People say things in fights. They threaten. They go to the police. It doesn't mean anything. They don't mean it." I really have to go home," I said. My voice sounded very small in my own ears. "My parents, it's getting late. They'll be worried." "Stay," she said. The word came out flat, commanding. "Just for dinner. I'll make something quick. You'll like it. You can tell your parents you were helping your neighbor. They won't be mad, I promise. They'll probably be proud of you." I could feel my heart banging in my chest so hard it made my vision pulse. "I can't," I said. "They'll ground me. I'm not supposed to be out this long." I said I'd be back. She stared at me. Her face changed. Up until that moment, even through the tears, even through the anger, she'd kept some faint shape of nice neighbor lady. Now, for a split second, that cracked. There was something else underneath, something cold, something calculating. Then she started to cry again. Not the deep chest-heaving sobs from before. Louder, higher, more theatrical. She covered her face with her hands and her shoulders shook. "You're just like him," she wailed. "You leave. Everyone leaves. I open my door. I open my house. I open my heart. And everyone just leaves me." Guilt slammed back into me like a wave. "I'm sorry," I whispered. My eyes burned. I'm really sorry. My parents. Your parents. Your parents," she muttered through her hands. "They're not here. I'm here. I'm the one who needs you. You don't understand how important this is. You don't understand what you're doing." She dropped her hands suddenly and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. My whole body flinched. "Please let go," I said. My voice shook. "Please. I have to go." She stared at the place where her hand was wrapped around my arm, like she'd surprised herself. Slowly, her fingers loosened. She let go. The pressure of her grip stayed like an echo in my skin. "Fine," she said. The word hissed slightly. "Go. Run home to them. Leave me here, alone." She sniffed hard, turning her face away. I stood up so fast I almost tripped. My legs felt weirdly weak. "Goodbye," I said, because it felt like I had to say something. She didn't answer. She just made a sound like a half-swallowed sob. I grabbed my bike. hands clumsy, and rolled it down the porch steps. When my feet hit the sidewalk, I felt something release in my chest. I pedaled home as fast as I could. The whole way, I kept expecting to hear footsteps behind me, a voice calling my name, a car slowing down. The neighborhood looked different now. The neat lawns, the flower beds, the white fences, they all felt like decorations on a stage, hiding something in the wings. When I got home, my parents' car wasn't in the driveway yet. I checked the front door 3 times after I locked it. Then I went to my room, sat at my desk, and wrote it all down in my diary because I didn't know what else to do with the feeling. Later, when my parents came home, my dad asked casually, "Where have you been, kiddo?" I shrugged, just biking around. I didn't tell them. I told myself it was because I'd broken the stay close to home rule, and I didn't want to lose my bike privileges. That was part of it. The other part was harder to name. A sense that if I said it out loud, it would become too real, that they would look at me differently, or look at the neighborhood differently, or tell me I'd done something wrong. A few days later, I came home from school and saw 3 police cars parked in front of her house. Their lights weren't flashing, but the sight of them made my mouth go dry anyway. There were 2 officers standing on the lawn, talking quietly. The front door was closed now. One of the little front windows was broken, tarp taped over it from the inside. I slowed my bike without meaning to. One of the officers glanced at me. For a moment, I thought he was going to wave me over. Instead, he turned back to his partner. That night at dinner, I asked my parents if they knew what had happened on that street. My dad frowned, chewing. "Heard there was some kind of break-in," he said. "One of the neighbors called it in. Some homeless woman had been squatting in the place, I think. Broke a window to get in, made a mess." He took another bite. "Crazy." He said it the way people say crazy about a weird news story on TV. Something far away, something not connected to us. Later that week, I overheard the real story from another neighbor who liked to tell everyone everything. They said a man who lived there had taken in a homeless woman a while back, gave her clothes, food, a room, even a phone, tried to help her get a job, but she started to fixate on him. Developed this belief that his teenage son was actually her child. She'd hang around, cry, insist, argue. Finally, he'd had to kick her out. He sent his son to stay with his ex-wife because he was scared for him. Then he went to stay with his parents while he figured out what to do. A few days after he left, she broke a window and moved back in, lived in the house alone for almost a week, destroyed it. A neighbor noticed the broken glass, called the police. They arrested her inside, surrounded by shattered pictures and overturned furniture and clothes pulled from drawers. I went around the back of the house once, heart pounding, just to see the broken window was there. Jagged edge of glass still in the frame, plywood now nailed over it. It was the same window I'd seen dark and open behind her that day. Years later, I still think about her hand on my wrist, the open door. The way she said, "You don't know how important it is that you're here with me." I used to think the gates around our neighborhood meant we were safe from the outside world. Now, when I picture that place, I don't see safety. I see a fence around a cage with people like her already inside. And sometimes when I'm walking alone and someone's crying on a bench or a stoop, I feel that same war in my chest, the pull to help, the urge to run. I still don't know what would have happened if I'd stepped through that door. I only know that I didn't, and that sometimes not entering a house is the choice that keeps you able to leave it. Story 2. The Neighbor and the Bell at 3 a.m. A few years ago, I lived in Japan as part of a university exchange program. 10 months in Hiroshima, 10 months of getting used to a new alphabet, new train lines, new snacks in the convenience stores. 10 months of learning over and over that different isn't the same as dangerous. Except once, my apartment building was one of those basic, concrete things built in the 70s, all right angles and narrow balconies. My unit was on the 2nd floor. Next to it, separated by a thin wall, was another one-room apartment. I never really thought about who lived there, just that I heard footsteps sometimes, the shuffle of sliding doors, the faint clink of dishes, life on the other side of a wall. Most of the Japanese people I met were unfailingly polite. Neighbors bowed in the hallway. Shopkeepers smiled. My professors apologized if they were even 1 minute late. It wasn't an idealized paradise. People are people everywhere. But there was a baseline of courtesy that made me feel safe. Then there was the woman next door. I didn't know she existed, not really until the night of the Sake Festival. The Sake Matsuri happens in Saijo, not far from Hiroshima. It's less cultural experience and more organized chaos with tiny cups. Sake from all over Japan, booths lined up like a liquid map, everyone stumbling from one to the next, faces flushed, voices loud. My exchange group went as a pack, trying different kinds. Some sweet, some so dry they felt like sand in your throat. The air smelled like rice and spilled alcohol and festival food, yakitori smoke, fried octopus, something sugary from a stand I never actually saw. By the time we caught the late train back, my memory was already a blur. I have flashes, laughing too loud, someone losing their shoe, the train's fluorescent lights making everyone look just a little bit sick. I remember calling my girlfriend back home when I got in. I remember slurring a mess of half English, half Japanese as I told her about the festival. I remember lying down on my futon, my room spinning gently, and thinking, I'm going to regret this in the morning. Then, black. I woke up at 6 a.m. to the sound of my doorbell being murdered. It wasn't a polite ring. It was the bell being pressed in bursts over and over, fast and hard, so the chime stuttered into a continuous nerve-scraping noise. My head felt like it had someone else's heartbeat in it. My mouth tasted like old rice. I sat up, disoriented, blinking in the gray light filtering through the curtains. The bell kept going. I stumbled to the door, squinted through the peephole and froze. A uniform, dark blue, white gloves, a police officer hat brim casting a shadow over his eyes. My stomach dropped. I panicked in 3 languages at once. I opened the door a crack. Chain still on. Hi, I managed, voice croaky. He bowed slightly. Ohayo gozaimasu, he said. He spoke rapidly after that. Too fast for my sake-fogged brain. I caught oto sound, kuremu, complaint, kino yesterday, yoru night, sumimasen, I said quickly. Nihongo mada jozu janai desu. I'm not good at Japanese yet. He nodded, patient, and pulled out his phone. We stood there, early morning air cool against my bare arms, while he typed. He handed me the screen. It said in shaky translation app, English, noise complaint from neighbor. Very loud last night. Please be careful. Quiet hours. I'm sorry, I said. I bowed too low. I drank. Sake Matsuri. I mimed drinking from a cup, grimacing. He smiled a little, like he'd expected as much. No problem, he said, carefully. Just quiet. He gestured, palms down, like pushing the air flat. He pointed vaguely toward the wall that separated my room from next door. Neighbor, he added. Wakarimashita, I said. I understand. He bowed again. I closed the door. I stood there for a minute. Forehead pressed against the cool wood, my heart hammering. The thing was, I hadn't been loud. I'd come home, made 1 phone call and passed out. No music. No friends over. No yelling, no dancing or falling around. It had been maybe 10 minutes of noise, tops. But I wrote it off. Different country, different norms, thin walls. Maybe my voice had carried. Maybe she was a light sleeper. Maybe I had been louder than I thought. I took some painkillers, chugged water. The day went on. The next morning at exactly 6 a.m., the doorbell shattered the silence again. Same violent, continuous buzzing, like someone leaning on it with their whole body weight. This time I knew what it was before I got to the door. 2 officers this time. Same uniforms, same serious faces. We went through the same script. They used the translation app, I explained. Through it, that I hadn't had anyone over. I'd watched Netflix on my laptop with headphones in and then gone to sleep. No music, no shouting. One of them, the older one, peered past me into my tiny apartment. Bare futon, 1 chair, a low table, a desk. It looked like a hotel room someone had forgotten to decorate. He frowned, then seemed to decide something. He typed into the app. We think mistake, but neighbor insists. We must come, if call. Please be patient. Neighbor? I asked. I pointed toward the shared wall. Kono hen, around here? He nodded. Tonari, he said. Next door. I'd still never seen her. Embarrassed and a little annoyed, I went to campus and later that day told the international coordinator, a middle-aged Japanese man named Sato-san, what had happened. He frowned deeply. Same neighbor? Twice? Yeah. And the second time, I definitely wasn't loud. He rubbed his chin. She is old lady, very sensitive. He searched for the word. Strange, he settled on reluctantly. Sometimes complain other students before. He hesitated.
Maybe better you move downstairs.
He said it gently, like a doctor suggesting an inconvenient procedure. I just got used to this room, I said, frustration prickling. The little balcony, the way the afternoon sun hit my desk at just the right angle. The grocery store view I'd gotten oddly attached to. He bowed slightly. I am very sorry. But if police called many times, apartment company angry, better to move now. So that was that. Someone else's discomfort was more important than my stability. It made sense on paper. It still stung. We scheduled the move for the next morning. He said he and the building manager would come up around 8 to help carry my stuff down to the identical unit below. I went to bed early, still mildly hungover from the stress at 3 a.m. My dreams dissolved into the sound of the bell. I didn't ease awake. I slammed into consciousness, heart pounding, lungs already tight. The room was dark. The only light, the weak glow of the city through the curtains. The doorbell was going off in frantic bursts. Not quite constant this time, but close. 5 presses, a pause, 6 presses, a pause, 7. My whole body went cold. This wasn't the patient, official ring of police. This was someone angry. I didn't move. I lay there, eyes wide open in the dark, listening. Press, 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 press. The sound echoed weirdly in the small concrete hallway outside my door, making it feel like it was inside my skull instead. In my head, I saw her. Some faceless, angry neighbor, gray hair wild, bathrobe hanging open, finger jabbing the bell like she wanted to break through the wall by force. I stayed perfectly still. After maybe a minute, the longest minute I've lived through, the ringing cut off abruptly. The silence that followed was so complete, it felt artificial, like the world had been muted. I waited and waited. My ears rang with the phantom of the doorbell. No footsteps, no voices, no sound. Eventually, I slid silently out of my futon, the tatami floor cool under my bare feet. I crept to the door, my heart thudding loud enough that I was sure it would give me away. I pressed my eye to the peephole. Empty. The narrow hallway was just a strip of dull linoleum, greenish walls, fluorescent light. I stared for a long time, half expecting a face to suddenly fill the fisheye view. Nothing. I checked the time. 3:12 a.m. I didn't sleep much after that. Every smallest noise, pipes, wind, the building settling, sounded amplified. My body stayed in that wired, static state of someone expecting something to happen. Morning light finally seeped around the edges of the curtains, turning the room from black to blue. I showered, dressed, and started packing the last of my things into boxes. I kept glancing at the front door, irrationally afraid the bell would start again while my hands were full, that I'd drop something, that the crash would give her new reason to call the police. At around 8, I heard male voices outside, the low murmur of conversation. Then a polite knock. "Sumi," I started to say, then stopped. Not the door, the balcony. There was a sliding glass door that opened onto a narrow balcony that wrapped around the 2 apartments on my side of the building. On each balcony, there was a metal fence between units. Not a solid wall, but a barrier of vertical bars with enough space between them that you could stick an arm through if you really wanted. I turned toward the balcony door. It was open, completely. I knew I'd locked it the night before. I always did. A tiny habit, drilled into me from childhood. Lock the door, lock the windows. The metal latch was unhooked. Cold morning air slid into the room, making the curtains sway a little. Standing at the boundary between balconies, her upper body twisted unnaturally around the dividing fence, was my neighbor. She was still technically on her side, her feet planted there, but her torso was bent at a sharp angle, arms wrapped halfway through the bars. Head turned so far toward my side it looked like something out of a horror movie, and she was staring straight at me, our eyes locked up close, She did look like someone's grandmother. Short, with thinning hair pulled back into a loose bun, pale house clothes. But her eyes, there was nothing soft there. They were wide, unblinking, the whites slightly yellowed, the irises dark and flat. Her face was expressionless. No anger, no curiosity, no smile, just staring. Like I was an object she was trying to decide the use of. My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, it felt like my body forgot how to breathe. We held that eye contact for maybe 2 seconds. It felt much longer. Then, with a jerkiness that made my skin crawl, she snapped her gaze away, twisted her torso back to her own side, and disappeared from view. 2 seconds later, my doorbell rang. This time, the chime was normal. 1 press. Ding-dong, I froze. The timing couldn't be coincidence. "Hey," a voice called from the hall. Male, cheerful. "It's Sato." Relief washed through me so fast it made me dizzy. I ran to the door, opened it, and saw him and the building manager standing there with a small dolly. "Good morning," Sato-san said, smiling. Then his face shifted when he saw mine. "Daijobu? Are you okay?" I stepped aside to let them in. My neighbor, I blurted in English. She was on the balcony, on my side. The door was open. I locked it last night. I swear I did. The building manager, an older man with a cigarette-burned voice, frowned. He stepped out onto the balcony, looked left and right. The neighbors' doors were closed now, curtains drawn. He slid my door shut hard, checked the lock, jiggled it. He muttered something under his breath too fast for my Japanese. But the tone was clear, annoyed, uneasy. We moved my boxes down 1 flight. On one trip, as we crossed the first-floor landing, I heard a high, reedy voice outside, coming from the direction of the stairs. I peeked out. The neighbor was in the courtyard, talking to the police. She was pointing up toward my old balcony, gesturing emphatically, her face animated now in a way I hadn't seen. The 2 officers from before were there, one of them with his hands up in a calming gesture. Her words floated up in fragments. Urusai, noisy, America-jin, American, Yoru, night, denwa, phone. She saw me then. Our eyes met again across the concrete space. Her expression flattened instantly. She stopped mid-sentence and just stared. The police officer she'd been speaking to followed her gaze. He saw me, nodded once, a small apologetic tilt of his head. She said something to him then, pointing not at my old balcony, but at the general direction of the building. Specifically, I realized with a cold little lurch toward where my new downstairs apartment was. If she couldn't get me next door, maybe she'd try from above. I went back inside quickly. We closed the door. Sato-san pretended not to see the way my hands shook as I picked up another box. After I moved downstairs, things got quieter, for me at least. I would sometimes hear footsteps pacing above me late at night. Sometimes I'd hear the faint thud of something hitting the floor, then a muffled voice talking rapidly, too low to make out the words, but insistent. A few times, friends who visited mentioned hearing my doorbell ring when they were over. I never heard it. We'd pause, look at each other, go check. No one would be there. It got to the point where they joked about the ghost neighbor. I didn't tell them about seeing her twisted around the balcony fence, staring like she was measuring me. One afternoon, months later, I came home to find a note taped to the building's entry door. It was handwritten in Japanese, addressed to all residents, reminding everyone about quiet hours and asking that they not harass or make unfounded claims against other tenants. The building manager's stamp was at the bottom. I never saw the police at the building again after that if she kept calling. Maybe they'd finally decided it wasn't worth it. I still think about that night at 3 a.m. though. The bell pressed over and over, hard enough to make the chime distort, the way she distorted her own body to look into my room, the balcony door latch unhooked. There's something uniquely unsettling about being targeted by someone not because of who you are, but because you just exist within their reach. Not a monster from a ghost story, not a criminal mastermind, just a lonely, unstable mind that decided you were the problem. When I think about Japan now, I remember the beauty, the kindness, the food, the festivals, and I also remember a pair of eyes staring at me from around a metal fence, unblinking as if they'd been watching long before I ever noticed. Story 3, The Man in the Car. The summer of 2016 was supposed to be the beginning of something perfect. I'd just gotten married. We'd found a nice townhouse in a quiet development. My parents lived in the unit right next to ours. My grandparents lived in the one between 3 generations lined up like a human fence. It felt like a small, safe world we'd built for ourselves. A little chain of houses where everyone knew everyone, where the porch lights were always on, where you could walk over to borrow sugar or just sit and talk until it got dark. Then I got pregnant. When I saw the plus sign, I cried. My husband picked me up and spun me around in the kitchen, both of us laughing and terrified. Our families were overjoyed. My grandma put her hands on my belly and said a prayer in a language older than the street we lived on. The townhouse complex looked even more perfect then. Rows of connected homes, each with a little square of lawn out front, a parking lot in the middle. Kids rode bikes in circles while parents watched from porches. Someone was always grilling. The air always smelled like charcoal and cut grass, and later in my first trimester, things that made me nauseous. My husband loved to fish. Every weekend, our town held a local fishing tournament at a pond a few miles away. He joined religiously. It was his thing. He'd leave in the afternoon with a cooler, his rods, his lucky hat. He'd come home late, smelling like water and scales and mud. Early in my pregnancy, I tried going with him. I wanted to be the supportive wife, to sit with him on the bank and cheer when he caught something, but the smell hit me like a physical blow. The mix of lake water, fish, bait, other people's cigarettes, it all turned my stomach. I spent most of that first visit bent over in the truck, breathing slowly. After that, we made a deal. He'd go fish. I'd stay home with my nausea and my cravings and my parents and grandparents next door. In the evenings when the worst of the sickness passed for a little while, I'd sit outside on my Nana's porch. The 3 of us, my mom, my grandmother, and me, would drink iced tea while my grandfather juggled the grill, the radio playing old songs in the background. The sun would sink behind the roofs, turning the sky orange and then purple. The town would get quiet in that sweet, early night way. That's when I started to notice him. He lived at the far end of the townhouse row. The last unit before the lot turned into an access road. I'd seen him in passing before. A tall man in his late 30s or early 40s, average build, dark hair cut short. Nothing remarkable, just another face in the complex. But in those evenings a pattern emerged. He'd drive into the lot, slow, like he was reluctant to reach his own door. He'd pull into his space, kill the engine, and then instead of going inside, he'd walk to the cluster of mailboxes that sat on a little concrete slab across from our line of porches. From my Nana's porch, we had a clear view of the boxes. He'd open his, check the mail. That was normal. What wasn't normal was what he did after. He'd stand there, not flipping through envelopes, not fiddling with his keys, just standing, holding his mail loosely in one hand, the other at his side, staring at us. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was just catching his eye as he glanced around. But as the days went on, it became obvious. Even when my mom and grandma were talking to each other, I could feel it, that prickling awareness on my skin that means someone is looking at you for longer than politeness allows. I started watching him back, subtly at first, then more directly. He always chose the same spot just to the side of the mailboxes where he had a clean line of sight to my Nana's porch. His face was blank. No smile, no frown, no twitch of recognition. His eyes were fixed on mine, not scanning the group, not checking who was there, just locked. The rest of his features stayed strangely still, like his face was a mask someone had forgotten to animate. He'd stay there for 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, long enough for my grandma to nudge me and whisper, "He's here again," under her breath. Long enough for my mom to go inside and come back out, see him still there and whisper, "That's not right." We started changing where we sat, pulling our chairs farther back on the porch, turning them angled away so his line of sight wasn't direct. It didn't seem to matter. His gaze followed. "He's probably just lonely," my grandfather said once, trying to be reasonable, but even he stopped meeting the man's eyes when he walked past. One night, I decided to go with my husband and my dad to the fishing pond, just for a change of scenery. I told myself the air would be fresher out there, that it would be good to get away from the complex and the neighbors' stare. We set up near the water. My dad told old stories. My husband fussed with his lures. I tried to settle onto the grass and let the crickets and the sound of the water soothe me. An hour later, the nausea hit hard, waves of it rolling from my throat down to my stomach. I need to go home, I told my husband, hand pressed over my mouth. He looked worried. You okay to drive back? Yeah, I lied. I'll be fine. I'll text you when I'm home. If I feel better, I'll come back and pick you up. He hesitated. My dad waved him off. We've got her car here. She'll be fine. Go lie down, kiddo. Text us. So I went home. The drive back was mercifully uneventful. The air from the half-open window felt good on my face. I put on a movie when I got in, curled up on the couch, and rode out the worst of the sickness. By around 1 a.m, I felt a little better. Not good exactly, but functional. Guilty about leaving my husband there, I grabbed my keys, slid into my truck, and headed back across town to pick him up. The streets were mostly empty. That late at night, the town felt small and hollow. Streetlights threw orange circles onto the pavement. Most windows were dark. On the way back from the pond, my husband in the passenger seat now, head tipped back, talking about how many fish he'd almost caught. We hit a red light at an empty intersection. I slowed to a stop. In the rearview mirror, I saw headlights approaching fast. Whoa, I muttered. This guy's flying. The car didn't slow down as quickly as I expected. It rolled up behind us, close. Too close. Close enough that I couldn't see its front bumper in the mirror anymore. He's right on us, I said, my voice sharpening. My husband looked back. Jeez. He's almost touching you. We sat there, the red light bathing the inside of the truck in a faint glow. I could feel the weight of the car behind us like something pressing on my spine. My husband said, when it turns green, just go easy. Don't brake suddenly. Last thing we need is him rear-ending us. The light changed. I pressed the gas, relief bubbling up, but in the mirror, the other car didn't move. It just stayed there, stopped at the light, even as we pulled away. That's weird, I said. Look, he's not moving. My husband twisted in his seat, frowning.
Maybe he's messing with you? Just focus on the road. In the mirror, I saw the car slowly roll forward, finally crossing the intersection. As it did, its headlights snapped off.
The sudden darkness where those 2 points of light had been made my skin crawl. What the hell? I whispered. The road ahead was straight. No cars, no pedestrians, just us and the faint hum of the engine. Then in the mirror, the headlights flared back on, high beams this time, bright and blinding. They flooded the inside of my truck with harsh white light, making it harder to see the road ahead. They're on my ass, I said, panic rising. My hands tightened on the wheel. Okay, slow down just a little, my husband said. Let him pass. I eased off the gas, heart thudding. The car behind didn't pass. It slowed too, staying glued to my bumper. Then the lights went out again. Pitch black behind us. My breath was coming faster now. My palms were slick. Babe, I said, he keeps killing his lights and then turning them on right behind us. What is he doing? My husband didn't answer for a second. Just keep driving. We're almost home. The drive that should have been 5 minutes stretched, each block feeling like a mile. In the mirror, the headlights would blink on, too bright, too close, then off. On off. Like someone was playing a game, watching to see our reaction. By the time we turned into our townhouse complex, my shoulders were so high with tension, it felt like they were touching my ears. The car behind us slowed, then stopped at the entrance, idling as we drove deeper in. I pulled into our assigned spot, hands shaking on the wheel for a minute. We both just sat there, engine off, watching the entrance. The complex was quiet. Most porch lights off now. The world reduced to parked cars and dark windows. The other car crept in. It moved slowly down the center lane, tires making a soft crunching noise on the gravel patches. As it passed under one of the lot's yellow lights, we saw it clearly. Same make, same dull paint, same dent in the driver's side door. It was our neighbor's car. He drove past our truck, eyes straight ahead. Then, instead of pulling into his usual spot at the far end, he did something strange. He turned his car around. He backed into his space, angled in such a way that his windshield pointed directly at our truck. Then he cut the engine and just sat there. I could see the vague shape of him through the windshield, head turned toward us, completely still. "Do we get out?" I asked. My voice sounded thin. "We're not staying in here all night," my husband said, but his jaw was tight. We grabbed our things and got out together, moving quickly, keys clutched between my fingers like makeshift brass knuckles. I could feel the neighbors' eyes on us as we walked to our door. Once inside, we locked everything. Twice. We sat on the couch for a while after that, talking in low voices. We kept coming back to the same conclusion. He was trying to scare us. Why? We didn't know, but the headlights game, the tailgating, the way he'd sat and stared at me from the mailbox for weeks, it all fit.
"Just avoid him," my husband said finally. "If he looks at you, don't look back. Don't give him anything. It was a nice idea." A few days later, I was driving alone, running an errand across town.
The afternoon was bright. The radio was on, and for a little while I forgot about him, about the parking lot, about the mailboxes. I hit a red light. I slowed to a stop. In my rearview mirror, I saw a familiar car pull up behind me. My stomach plunged like an elevator drop. He was close again. Not as dangerously close as that night, but close enough that the shape of his car filled most of the mirror. I told myself it could be coincidence. Lots of people had that model. Lots of people drove this route. Then I saw his face. He was leaning forward slightly, both hands on the steering wheel. His head was tilted down, his eyes looking up, so he was peering at me through his eyebrows. His expression, I still have trouble describing it. It wasn't neutral. It wasn't outright angry either. Not in a big, loud way. It was tight, lips pressed into a straight line, nostrils flared just a little, eyes too wide, like someone holding back something, pressure building behind an already cracked dam. His stare pinned me to my seat. The light turned green. The car behind me didn't move right away. I pressed the gas, so did he. Stayed right there, the same distance, mirroring my acceleration. I sped up a little, hoping he'd either fall back or go around. He sped up too. My pulse roared in my ears. One hand went instinctively to my belly, as if I could shield the baby from inertia. Images flashed through my mind, the impact of his car slamming into the back of mine, my body jerked forward, the seatbelt cutting into my abdomen, hospital rooms, machines, my husband's face when they told him. Panic made everything feel too bright, too loud, the whoosh of other cars passing in the opposite direction, the ticking of my blinker, my breathing. I made a decision. At the next intersection, I flicked on my left turn signal. At the last possible second, I swerved right instead, pulling into the shoulder, braking fast. He reacted too late. He swerved behind me, his car veering closer than it ever should have. The front bumper of his vehicle coming within what felt like inches of my back bumper before he corrected. He honked once, a short, sharp sound, not surprised, angry. Then he sped off, disappearing past the light. My whole body shook. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles hurt. I had to sit there for a minute. Engine idling, breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth, trying not to throw up. I called my husband. He listened, his voice going quieter and quieter until all he said at the end was, "Come home now." When I pulled into our complex, there he was, at the mailboxes, checking his mail, looking up. I parked, adrenaline making my movements jerky. I called my mom from the car, whispered a condensed version of what had happened. Within minutes, she was outside, walking quickly toward my truck. I got out, keeping my eyes on the ground. My neighbor stood in his usual spot by the mail, letters untouched in his hand. I could feel his gaze like a high beam on the side of my face. "Come on," my mom said, looping her arm through mine. We walked quickly to my door. I could feel my neighbor's eyes following us the whole way. Once inside, I locked everything. That night, my sister came over.
She's the type who, when she smells something off, doesn't let it go. "He's not just weird," she said, pacing in my kitchen. "This is more than weird." She pulled out her phone. "What's his last name again?" Within an hour, she had more information than I ever wanted. Public records, old news articles, a mugshot from years ago, his hair longer, his eyes the same. He'd killed someone, not an accident, not a bar fight that went wrong, not a self-defense case. He'd murdered his roommate, stayed in the apartment with the body for days. There were details in the article about decomposition, about smell complaints from neighbors, about how he'd been caught trying to figure out how to get rid of the body. He'd tried to plead insanity,
Doctors had evaluated him. The jury hadn't bought it. He'd gone to prison. He'd gotten out early. That blank stare at the mailbox, the headlights games, the way he'd followed me in the car, that twisted expression, the pressure behind it. "I told you," my sister said quietly. "I told you this was more than weird." After that, paranoia stopped being irrational and became frankly necessary. I locked the doors obsessively, checked the windows, checked the peephole before I opened the door, even if I was expecting someone. I got a legal gun and a permit, kept it in a safe, but made sure I could reach it fast if I had to. The idea of using it made me sick. The idea of not having it made me sicker. For a while, nothing escalated beyond looks. He still did the mailbox thing, still parked his car so he could sit and watch, still occasionally tailgated me in the complex, pulling in behind me so close I could hear his engine rumble through my rear window. Then there was the night with the song. My dad and my husband were outside, working on my truck. Something about the brakes. The evening air was cool. My baby, now born, dozed in my arms on the porch swing. My mom sat beside me, sipping coffee. The neighbor's car pulled into the lot. We all tensed automatically, the way you do when you see lightning and wait for the thunder. His windows were down. Music blasted from the speakers, loud enough that the lyrics were clear from across the parking lot. I've had the time of my life, Dirty Dancing, a song that under any other circumstances would have been harmless, even cheesy. He drove slowly past us, the song swelling, the chorus hitting right as his car rolled into our line of sight. He made eye contact with me, then with my mom, then with my baby, expression unreadable. He didn't pull into his usual space right away. He circled the lot once, music still blaring, that damn song about joy and endings and memories filling the whole complex like a taunt. Then he backed into his spot, again, angled so his windshield faced our porches. He didn't turn the music off. It played, loud, so loud I could hear every syllable of, "No, I've never felt like this before." He sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, eyes on us. My mom and I looked at each other. "That's it," she said, anger rare and sharp in her voice. "I'm done," she shouted for my dad and my husband. "Go ask him what his problem is right now." They wiped their hands on rags, faces set. They'd been patient up to that point, telling us to ignore him, not to give him the reaction he probably wanted. But the song, the circling, the watching my baby, this was too much. They started walking toward his car. As soon as he saw them coming, he turned the song off mid-chorus, started his engine, and pulled out fast. He drove through the lot and down the alley, disappearing into the night. Coward, I thought, but the word didn't make me feel any better. I don't think I've truly heard that song since without feeling my throat tighten. At weddings and grocery stores, on the radio, the first notes are enough to bring back the image. His car, slow and deliberate, his eyes fixed on my porch. A few weeks after that, he moved. No warning, no goodbye. One day his car was there, the next. It wasn't a "for rent" sign went up in his unit's window. The relief I felt was almost physical, like someone had removed a weight I hadn't realized was literally changing the way I walked. The complex felt lighter. The mailbox area was normal again. I could sit on my Nana's porch and focus on my baby instead of the eyes watching me, but the damage was done. Because in the grocery store or driving across town or walking into a gas station, every time I saw someone with his build, his haircut, even just his shirt color, my heart would lurch. Sometimes it was him. I'd see him across a parking lot, getting into a different car, talking to someone. Our eyes would meet for a fraction of a second and a whole world of unease would open up between us. I'd look away first. There's a particular horror in realizing that the bad guy in your story, the one who made you change your habits and sleep with extra locks and carry a weapon, is someone other people see as just a guy. They don't know he lived with a body. They don't know he stared at a pregnant neighbor like she was a problem he hadn't yet solved. They don't know that when a certain song plays, somewhere in this town, my hands still shake. Story 4, the day they turned off the lights. Grad school felt like a good time to start over. New state, new city, new everything. I packed my car with books and bed sheets and whatever furniture I could fit, left my hometown 5 hours behind me and drove toward what I hoped would be a more adult life. The university was in a not great part of town. Cheap rents, high crime, old buildings whose past tenants had left their ghosts in the walls. I couldn't afford one of the shiny new complexes marketed to students, not if I wanted to pay tuition and eat. So when I found the house, it felt like a decent compromise. It had clearly once been a large, single-family home. 2 stories, a wide front porch, the kind of tall windows that had seen better decades. At some point, someone had chopped it up. There was a staircase added awkwardly at the side, dividing floors into separate apartments. A 2-story addition sprouted from the back like a tumor, containing more units. I rented one of the middle apartments on the first floor. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, half-decent bathroom. The floor sloped in one corner. The windows were drafty, but it was cheap, and it was 5 minutes from campus by bike. The parking lot was behind the house, accessed by a narrow driveway that scraped the underside of my car if I took it too fast. There was a line of numbered spaces painted on cracked asphalt. From my kitchen window, I could see the lot. The backs of the other tenants' cars, a distant fence. Beyond that, a dingy alley I kept to myself. It was partly who I am, partly survival instinct. Nod in the hallway, say hi if someone said it first, but don't get too involved in other people's lives. This was my deal with myself: get through grad school, get the degree, get out. I still ended up meeting the couple next door. They were hard to avoid. Their apartment shared a wall with mine. Their front door was 2 steps from mine. The little landing outside our doors was barely wide enough for one person to stand and wait for someone to answer a knock. I met them the first week I moved in. I was coming back from class, arms full of books, when their door opened and the wife stepped out. She was in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, hair pulled back into a messy ponytail, wearing a tank top and sweatpants. She smiled widely, too widely, like she'd practiced it in a mirror. "Hey there," she said, voice loud in the small hallway. "You must be the new guy." "Yeah," I said, shifting the books in my arms. "Just moved in." She peered at the stack. "Grad student?" "Yeah, psychology." It slipped out before I could stop it. People always ask. "Oh, fancy," she said, laughing. She said her name, which I'll skip here, and jerked a thumb over her shoulder. "And this is my husband." He appeared behind her, a step back in the dimness of their apartment. Taller than her, bald with a kind of soft heaviness to his features that made his actual age hard to pin down. Late 30s, early 40s, he smiled, a slow, careful thing. "Hey," he said. His voice had an odd cadence, like he had to think about each word before he said it. The building manager had mentioned him when I signed the lease. Not in a warning way exactly, but in that careful, neutral tone people use when they're trying to compress a complicated situation into a sentence. "His father owns the building," the manager had said. "He had a bad car accident a few years back. Brain injury. So, if he seems a little off sometimes, that's why. His wife takes care of him. They're good people. Just loud sometimes." The wife leaned on the door frame, eyes bright. "We should have you over for dinner sometime," she said. "It's nice to have new blood around here. Most people are, She wrinkled her nose. "You living alone?"
"Yeah," I said. "Just me. That must get lonely," she said quickly. "Come by whenever. We're always home. We sit out here a lot." She gestured to the landing, where 2 folding chairs were wedged against the wall.
They did, in fact, sit out there a lot. If the weather was at all decent, she'd park herself in one of those chairs, door propped open behind her so she could talk to her husband inside. Sometimes he sat out there too, slumped, staring at nothing while she talked enough for both of them. They paid very close attention to my comings and goings. Anytime I opened my door, her head would swivel. "Hey,
"Where are you off to?"
she'd call. "How's school? You dating anyone? You should meet my cousin. She's single. She's a little crazy, but in a fun way." Sometimes I'd come home and find their screen door barely cracked, just enough that they could see the hallway. I'd hear whispering stop when my keys jingled. Then, as I passed, the wife would push the door open and say, "Oh, hey," like she'd just happened to notice me. It started to make me feel like my life was a TV show they were always half watching. I tried to be polite. Small talk in the hall, smiles, nods. When they invited me to dinner the first few times, I said, "I've got a lot of reading tonight, but maybe another time."
Another time never came. They were intense. The wife talked in a rush, bouncing from topic to topic without taking a breath, oversharing about their finances, their sex life, her in-laws, strangers at the grocery store. The husband would sit next to her, nodding slowly, eyes flicking between us. At night, through the thin wall, I'd hear them fighting. Not just raised voices, but full-on screaming matches. Her voice sharp and piercing, words blurred by the plaster, but tone unmistakable. His voice was deeper, slower, sometimes slurred when he got upset. Sometimes there were crashing sounds, objects hitting walls, doors slamming. It would start as I was trying to fall asleep and go on for hours. On the nights it got particularly bad, I'd put in earplugs and turn on a fan. The white noise helped, but not completely. Their anger seeped through the wall like smoke. More than once I wondered if I should call the police. Then I'd picture the awkwardness of them knowing it was me, of having to share a landing with a couple who thought I'd betrayed them. I pictured the wife confronting me in the hall, shouting. I pictured the husband, large and unpredictable, standing between us. I didn't call. Instead, I learned the rhythm of their arguments, the rise, the fall, the inevitable thud of someone storming off to the bedroom. After a few months, I could almost time it. Occasionally, in the middle of a fight, the wife would fling open their door and storm out onto the landing.
A couple of times, she looked at my door like she was considering knocking. Once, she did. It was around midnight. I'd been reading, trying to ignore the yelling. Suddenly, there was a loud, rapid knock on my door.
I froze. I knew exactly who it was. Her voice came immediately after. "Hey, you awake?" she called. "You hear this? You believe this guy?" I stood in the middle of my room, not moving, heart pounding. I waited, holding my breath, until she huffed and stomped away. The argument picked back up next door, louder now that it had an audience, even if that audience was just a silent neighbor on the other side of the wall. My lease was for a year. By the time that year was almost done, I had become an expert in avoidance. If I heard them outside, I'd wait inside until they went in. If I had to leave and they were on the landing, I'd time my body language so that my movements said clearly I'm in a hurry. Phone in hand, headphones in ears, keys already in motion. It didn't always work. They'd still call out, still ask questions, still invite. "You still haven't come to dinner," the wife said one day, mock accusing, as I squeezed past their chairs. "Yeah, sorry," I said. "Things have been crazy with school. Too busy for homemade lasagna," she pressed. "You gotta eat, you know. A young man like you, all alone, you need a good meal." "I really appreciate it," I said, backing toward the stairs. "Maybe when the semester calms down." Her husband watched, eyes slightly too wide. "But you never came," he said, more to himself than to me. There was something in his tone I couldn't quite place. Not anger, something like hurt or entitlement. I found a new place to live that winter. A small studio across town, slightly more expensive, in a better neighborhood, fewer sirens at night. No shared walls. The thought of leaving that building felt like climbing out of a pit. I told the building manager first, gave my notice, then I tried, and failed to figure out how to tell my neighbors. In the end, I didn't. I started moving small things out quietly over the course of a week. Books, clothes, kitchen stuff. On those trips, I timed my exits for when the hallway was silent. 2 days before my official move-out date, as I was carrying a box of dishes to my car, the husband caught me. He stepped out of his doorway as I was halfway down the stairs, like he'd been waiting just inside, listening for my steps. "Hey," he called. "Hey, where you going?" I turned, box heavy in my arms. There was no way to pretend I wasn't moving something. I forced a smile. Hi, I'm moving. Got a new place, just across town." His eyes widened. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then, "But you never came to dinner." The way he said it, slow, flat, made the hairs on my arms stand up. "I know, I'm sorry," I said quickly. "This year was just hectic. I really do appreciate the offer, though. You guys have been very welcoming." He just stood there, in the middle of the narrow walkway, staring at me. I shifted the box in my arms, backing down another step. "Well, I better get this to the car." He didn't move, just watched as I went down the rest of the stairs, his gaze following me all the way to the back door. As I drove away with that first full load, I saw him through my rearview mirror, still standing in the hallway, small and dark in the rectangle of the open door. The next day, I moved more things. By then, my apartment looked half empty. Mattress on the floor, a few boxes, the essentials I'd kept for the last couple of nights. The weather had turned bitterly cold, the kind of cold that bites exposed skin within seconds. The forecast said the temperature was going to drop below 0 that night. I planned to stay one more night, then finish moving in the morning. Around sunset, as the light outside went from gray to blue, my apartment went suddenly completely black. It took my brain a second to catch up. I sat there in my chair, book in hand, and thought, weird. Before I realized the lamp had gone out, the heater had gone off, the faint hum of the fridge had stopped, the power was out. I checked the lamp, flicked the switch a few times like that was going to help. Nothing. The light from the street was too thin to see by. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and went to the breaker box in my apartment. It was fine, all the switches in the on position, no obvious issues. I looked out into the hall. The emergency light there was on. That meant the building itself still had some electricity, or at least the backup did. I called the building manager. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I dialed the power company's outage line next, teeth chattering a little now from the cold air settling in. A recorded voice told me to press numbers, then put me on hold. When an actual human picked up, I explained as best I could. The woman on the line said there were no reported outages in my area, but she'd send a truck to check the transformer that served my building just in case. In the meantime, I was losing heat fast. Old house, poor insulation, single-pane windows. In the summer, it held warmth. In the winter, it bled it out of every crack. It was already below freezing outside. With no heat, my apartment was turning into a refrigerator. I grabbed my coat, my bag, a few things I couldn't leave, and decided to go stay at my then-girlfriend's parents' house for the night. They lived out of town, but the roads were dry, and the idea of sitting in a dark, freezing apartment didn't appeal as I locked my door. I glanced at my neighbors. Light glowed faintly around the edges of their door. Their TV flickered blue against the inside wall. I could hear the muffled sound of a sitcom laugh track. Someone had power. I hesitated a second. The thought came and went quickly. Maybe I should ask if they'll let me warm up there until the power company comes. Then I pictured sitting on their couch, trapped between their conversations and their arguments. The wife asking me personal questions, the husband staring. I pictured trying to leave and the wife saying, "Stay, we insist," and the husband saying, "You never came to dinner." I went down the stairs instead. I spent the night at my girlfriend's parents' house, wrapped in blankets, warm, trying not to think about my half-empty apartment. In the back of my mind, a small worry gnawed. What if the pipes froze and burst? The next morning, I drove back, breath steaming in the car. The power company's truck was parked out front, an orange logo on the side, a guy in a hard hat standing by a panel on the exterior wall. Inside, my apartment lights were back on. The radiators ticked as heat flowed through them. The air was still cold but climbing. I was halfway through my door when the worker called up the stairs. "Hey, you the one who called about the outage?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, coming back down a step. "That was me." He chuckled, not unkindly. "Well, man, you sure pissed somebody off." A little ice crystal formed in my gut. "What do you mean?" He wiped his hands on his pants. "We checked the lines, the transformer, all that. Everything feeding the building was fine. Only one unit was out. Yours." He jerked a thumb toward the side of the house where the basement door was. "The master panel's down in the storage area," he explained. "Usually when a breaker trips on its own, it kind of settles in the middle, not fully on, not fully off. Yours was flipped all the way down. That doesn't happen by accident. Someone went down there and switched it off." I stared at him. He went on, "And that room's locked. Only the landlord or the owner has a key. So yeah, take from that what you will." He gave a little shrug, the kind tradespeople give when they've seen worse and can't afford to be shocked every time. "Anyway," he added, "you should be good now." I flipped it back. "Thanks," I said numbly. He headed back to his truck. I went inside. My apartment looked the same as I'd left it, half empty. Boxes stacked by the door, a mug still on the counter, ring of coffee at the bottom. But now it felt violated. Someone with access to the basement, someone with a key, not me, had gone downstairs, found my specific breaker, and turned off my power on the coldest night of the year. knowing or not caring that it would leave me in a dark, freezing box. I thought about the building manager, overworked, underpaid, generally indifferent. I thought about my neighbors, the husband, with his slow speech and wide eyes, whose family owned the building, the wife, with her loud voice and strong opinions, who complained about other tenants, who seemed to delight in petty dramas. I remembered the husband's face when I'd told him I was moving. "But you never came to dinner." I remembered the way they always seemed to know when I was coming and going, the way their door would crack open if I so much as jostled my keys. I stood very still in the middle of my room, the radiator groaning, the building settling, my own breath shallow. I could have gone next door, knocked, asked, casually if they'd had any trouble with their power last night. I didn't. I packed the rest of my things in a blur, my movements economical and fast. Every time I stepped out into the hall, I listened for their voices behind their door. If I heard even a murmur, I waited until it went quiet before opening mine. As I carried boxes down to my car, I didn't look up at their windows. I didn't want to see a face watching from behind a curtain. On my last trip, as I closed my now empty apartment door for the final time, I heard movement next door. The soft thud of someone's feet on the floor. I didn't wait to see if they'd open their door. I walked down the stairs out to the lot, put the final box in my trunk. I didn't look back at the house when I pulled out, not even in the rearview mirror. Sometimes I wonder if what they did was planned or impulsive. If it was the wife annoyed that I'd never accepted her invitations, telling her husband show him and handing him the basement key. If it was the husband acting alone, thinking in some wounded corner of his mind that if he made me uncomfortable enough, I'd regret not letting them in. Sometimes I try to convince myself it wasn't them at all, that it was a clerical error. A board manager who'd flipped the wrong switch, an electrician testing something, but the worker's words stick with me. Only your place. Somebody flipped it intentionally, and only management has the key. In the end, it doesn't matter exactly who. What matters is that someone with power over whether my light stayed on chose to put me in the dark. I lock my breaker box now. I make sure my new landlord understands that I take that seriously. I pay my bills early. I keep relationships with neighbors politely distant. We talk a lot in horror stories about strangers, the unknown, the masked intruder, the faceless ghost, the nameless thing in the woods. What I learned in that building is that sometimes what you should fear isn't the stranger, it's the neighbor who knows exactly which switch to flip and exactly how cold it's going to get when they do.